We have a matter in South Africa. The remains of the late president have still not been put to rest. Remember, something ugly occurred last month. Something terrible occurred to the remains of the late president, where the body was picked. The body, Mama Chika Monica in the bubu. Thank you, Mayo. Ciao, Mamuleo Umfa Mayo. I'll wait for your phone call. Yeah, you know, she's written that Mama Chika Monica in the bubu. Wonderful. So you can comment and I'll acknowledge you when you join us in the debate. Thank you very much. So we had a terrible matter where the remains of the late president were stolen. And overnight, the following day, they were subjected to literally mutilation under the guise that the body was undergoing post-mortem. And remember, there has been no authority that has been issued for anyone to conduct the post-mortem of the late president. And we told you that there's a matter where a body, so-called Progressive Forces of South Africa, PFSA, took the matter to the Gauteng Magistrate Court in Randburg, where they wanted to be given authority to conduct a coroner's inquest to determine the death of the late president. And they also wanted that a postmortem be done. Those two issues were to be ruled by the court on the 29th of May 2026. So under what authority did the Attorney General pick the remains of the late president from two mountains, take the body overnight, and then conduct an illegal postmortem, extensive postmortem on the late president for over 5 hours? They got body tissues and body organs, they said, for purposes of postmortem. And we saw the family rush to court. That same night when the body was taken, they obtained an injunction. The Attorney General refused. And by the time we discovered the body, Makebi Zulu discovered the body, the following day, a postmortem had been done, a gruesome one, for 5 hours. And they rushed for an inter-party hearing where now the two parties, the Zambians Attorney General and the family of the late president, agreed that the body will now move from two mountains to, I think, Avbob, and that the cost will be taken over by the state. And remember, the Attorney General said he picked the body and prepared to repatriate it to Zambia because there was a court judgment in August 2025. And he said the appeal by the family in the Supreme Court, he said that appeal had failed. And he therefore relied on the judgment by Judge Ledwaba, who was deputy president at the High Court at the time, issued a judgment to give authority to the Zambian government to pick the body and put the body to rest using state protocols and state respect. We know that an appeal was made. Even that judgment didn't give them authority to conduct a postmortem. It actually gave them strong guidelines. Number one, that the body should be accompanied by the ADC the entire time, his former medical doctor, and a family member. Those were the conditions. But they picked the body and conducted a postmortem. So what has happened? Remember, the Attorney General claimed that there's no matter in the Supreme Court. No, the matter is still in the Supreme Court. In fact, that's why the High Court gave the order to the family. So that matter that is in the Supreme Court, to appeal to the decision by the High Court of Pretoria, to grant authority to the Zambian government to repatriate the body and put it to rest, was appealed against in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court of Appeal, the highest court in South Africa, is a constitutional court. It's not like in Zambia, where the Constitutional Court and the Supreme Court are at par. So the Supreme Court in South Africa, which is based in Bloemfontein, is called Supreme Court of Appeal. Why? Because there's a senior body on top of it, which is a constitutional court. So that matter has been scheduled for 27th of May. It's coming up on 27th of May in Bloemfontein. And why Bloemfontein in Free State is South Africa has practiced the independence of the wings of government. So the executive is in Pretoria. Legislators, Parliament is in Cape Town. The Supreme Court and Constitutional Court are in Bloemfontein. So they've practiced practically, actually, the independence of these wings. So that particular matter, an appeal made by the family, has now been scheduled. It's coming up on the 27th of May, which is in this same month. It's coming up for a full hearing. The family lawyer, who has been appointed as a Constitutional Court judge, he wants, I think, to finish this matter, and he will argue this case himself. So that is the update we have on the remains of the late president, that the matter now has been scheduled for 27th to come up in the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein for hearing. When I come back, we deal with the other two issues, then we open the phone lines. This is your program, so I'll not hold and speak for a long time. I want you to speak. Let's discuss the electoral process and what has just happened.
If I cannot move out of my country, Zambia, to go for medication at my own expense, and I'm pulled out of a plane to say, go back home and die, that for me constitutes house arrest. I will not die a peaceful death if I was to die today without restoring PF to what it is. By the way, I've been saying to people who want me to reconcile with the president that, look, the only way we can start talking about reconciliation is for the man to begin restoring democracy. And how he restores democracy to me is by restoring the legitimate leadership into PF, where we were on 23rd October 2023, where we had elected leaders like myself as president and others, including our SGs and everybody. Once he restores that, he tells his people in the civil service to say, guys, can you correct this? The register's record to show the true reflection of the leadership of the party. Then we're on our way to go. They've done that with other political parties as a system, and I can't allow that. So we are going to fight. So talk of retirement, you retire when you are comfortable, that things are okay. But when you're an old man and you see things are being messed up, and you sit and watch the children, no, you put on your warrior garb, and you take your spear and your segai and your chamtunga, and you go and fight with them. That's what they do. So that's what I've done. So I've come back because
uhule ma politics wataka, political prostitution. Okay? Where now we are seeing the same things that is happening, you say, in development, where the civil servant, when the senior civil servant is visiting them, they parade a person, say this and this. This is exactly what is doing in the politics. In the first place, a political party is formed under an ideology. A political party is formed under an ideology. If there is a political party that has got no ideology, these are the political parties that they should be deregistered. It's just like churches. Today, I cannot be a Roman Catholic church. Tomorrow I wake up, I'm in RCZ. The other day I'm in Zion. The other day I'm in the Seventh Day. Then what am I standing for? Do I have any principles in the first place? Do I understand why the church I have joined is standing for? The answer is no. This is the political prostitution that we have seen in Eastern Province. I'm talking about in Eastern Province because that is where my mandate is. And the political parties that are receiving people that are defecting from this party to this party, they must be very, very careful. They must be very, very careful. For example,
let's go into it Today we saw Parliament will be dissolving formally tomorrow. They held the last session on Tuesday, and it's dissolution because you have to dissolve 90 days. Parliament has to dissolve before you go to elections. And our constitution prescribes that you go to elections. It has a date and time. That's why it will be differing between 12th and 14th when we go to election, depending on the calendar. And the Constitution has prescribed the second week in August, and I think it has prescribed the Thursday in which you should hold elections. So 13th August is the day we are going to elections. And 90 days before, Parliament must stand dissolved. There was an attempt under Bill 7 that Cabinet must remain in office, and there was that proposal. But that proposal did not go through. It was among the issues that allowed President Hichilema to negotiate with, to somehow yield to allow Bill 7 to go through. So the decision in Bill 7 to allow ministers to stay was refused. So President Hakainde Hichilema today also held the last session of his cabinet. What is your view about this cabinet? I find it that it was the most incompetent cabinet. Why do I say so? It rarely spoke. It rarely defended the policies of President Hakainde Hichilema and President Hakainde Hichilema's government. The leaders were some barely unknown, and I have called it the worst cabinet we've had since 1964. They relegated their duties to the people I used to call the M23. These are the various spokespersons that the party had assembled. So you would hear policy and government issues from undesignated persons. So if Clayson Amasaka wasn't speaking, Oliver Shalala or Max Muwe, and they carried no authority to the issues that they wished to attend to. If it is Max Muwe, who's a civil servant, he doesn't even occupy a national management committee. He's a civil servant as media director under the Secretary General. He would issue any statement, even regarding the US ambassador. It was the most incompetent team I have seen. And then you saw innovations emerge where Jito Kayumba had his own communication system, Clayson Amasaka, Brian Mwinga, they were running Causeway and trying to run the public media, and then came the cyber laws. The communications was now delegated to the police, who just began to arrest people. Instead of unleashing the potential of cabinet and potential of cabinet to defend their position, they unleashed the police on us, on critics. And what is your view of this cabinet? President Hakainde Hichilema held this cabinet. If I'll get a picture and show it to you, you barely remember who they are. You barely remember who they are. I'm looking at the picture here. There are a few people I can recognize. Of course, the president and the vice president. Rodney Skumba, the Minister of Justice, Princess Kasune, Ruben Mutolo, the man that said we'll never export power at all. In fact, if we were to rate these ministers, you can give them zeros and ones. I don't think there's anyone who would score over 50%. They were very lucky that they had the vocal president. So President Hichilema loved the microphone and he loved to chatter. So he loved to speak to the very issues. Many times he hijacked the processes. For example, if there was a matter in the mines and selling the mines, he became the champion and he was the one that was speaking to the issue. Pokabuswe became the chola boy to those processes, whether at Mopani, KCM, Kansanshi, or the investment by First Quantum. The president took over the job of the ministers himself. The drought, and that's why he would issue, very funny statements. Remember when we had the drought and the president said it's biblical. What are people he used the word biblical. You know, he has a way in which he speaks. Like digital, he says digital. So biblical, he says biblical, you know. And so there were funny statements, but I attribute to this as the most incompetent cabinet. Tamba Tamba, the lady with a deep voice from Kasempa, Minister of Labour. You had a few, you know, Peter Kapala, you know. Then my young brother from Chingola, Mlenga, he tried to be relevant and he just misspoke. You can't mistake loudness for knowledge. And Chipoka Mlenga demonstrated that being loud doesn't mean that you are speaking sense. Elvis Nkandu, straight from the market, MP, and he was Minister of Youth and Sport. And he was more effective in by-elections because he's a campaigner. When he headed Zanama, he knows how to speak to the grassroots. But as a minister, oh my God, with these two PSs, they were a bunch of jokers. Tayali with his motorbikes, the chief spokesperson, you know, chief government spokesperson Cornelius Mwetwa, whose job was hijacked by the people I call the M23, because by the time he spoke, they had either spoken or misspoken, and by the time he tried to clarify, I've never seen such an incompetent media team. Douglas Yakaliman, Ministry of Education, these are very forgettable names. The Minister of Defense, Lufuma, Energy Minister, and like I said, it's hard to know who these people are. I'm very well informed. I am on top of current affairs and have difficulties to make out some of the ministers. It was never like that. The ministers were in your face and they spoke to their sectoral responsibilities. But this bunch was the quietest of them all. Give me your view and your opinion about the cabinet. And who do you remember? Who do you think worked? You can assess that. The ECZ, as you saw, the submission of the 1,000 supporters is coming to an end. Today we saw Makebi Zulu under Resolute Party bring the 1,000, and he brought Civic Center to a halt with a number of people he brought in Ndola, in Lusaka, and other places. He has fulfilled and he's gotten the certificate. Tell me in the comment, did Dr. Reverend Given Katuta manage? Did Reverend Dr. Given Katuta manage as an independent presidential candidate? Confirm in the post, in my post there. Xavier Franklin Chikonkolo Chungu, did he manage with the 1,000 supporters? Please comment for me. Dr. Brian Mushimba, former Minister of Works and Supply, former Minister of Energy, did he, you know, we remember him for banning nighttime driving for trucks and buses, but now that position with the 24-hour economy has been revoked. Brian Mushimba organized People's Party. Did he succeed? Tomorrow, we will see Ritual Siamnene, Pastor Peter Chanda, Mr. Trevor Msonda Mwamba, and President Hakainde Hichilema bring their 1,000 supporters across the country. And someone was saying, Ambassador Mwamba, I know you don't like to discuss tribalism. I know you don't like to discuss that. But after you look at the 26 Mwebantu wa Kwalesa, you can't come together. Let me just read. Someone was reprimanding me. At Mwebantu 26, you can't come together. He says from the, what you call the Zambezi region, which is northwestern, western, and southern province, only 2 people have emerged, which is Ritual Siamnene, New Focus Party, and President Hakainde Hichilema. From the Chambeshi, Luangwa region, meaning, you know, from the 2 regions, Howard Kunda, I think he's from Serenje, Charles Chanda, Mwemba Munensu, Kelvin Fubebwalia, Brian Muntayalo wa Munduvile, Given Mwenya Chansa, Professor Daniel Chivale Pule, Harry Kalava, Enoch Roosevelt Tonga. I don't know where Tonga is from. It could be from Eastern Province. Dr. Sebastian Copeland, Francis Mandona Mwape, Kasondesi Mwenda. Mabantu wakwale says Kasondesi Mwenda been released. Let's not forget our comrades. Please give me in the comments if you are aware if the release of Kasonde Mwenda as Oka Dr. Chitalu Chilufya, Chanda A.B. Katotowe, Richard Silumbe, Fred Membe. Contrary to what many people think that Fred Membe is lousy from Western Province. But if you go to his heritage, actually Fred Membe is from Chinsali and is part of the royal family. Mr. Membe is part of the royal family. Moses Mawere from Chipata. Makebi Zulu. Reverend Dr. Given Katuta from Chiengi. Xavier Franklin Chikonkolo Chungu from Bahati there. William Mudolo from Muyombe. Did William Mudolo's people file today? Again, give me some comments. Dr. Brian Mishimba. Then tomorrow we have Ritual Siamnene, Peter Chanda, Trevor Msonda, and Hakainde Ichlema. So someone said, Mwamba, you don't like to talk about tribalism and tribal issue, but here I'm challenging you. And I felt guilty. And I said, whatever lenses you use, the opposition might unite, must unite. Whether you use a tribal lens, whether you use a common sense lens, whether you just think that to be practical, the opposition must unite. Whatever way you use, they must unite. ECZ has issued guidelines. Let me just go through the guidelines of what will happen on nomination day. So they've put 15th May to 17th May for candidates to collect nomination documents. And they've given that guidance. Then for the venue and security access control, it will be at Mulungushi International Conference. They will use document verification room. So you submit the document, you will have to go to room 5, where designated officers will look at your documents. And then you walk into the main nomination hall. So for you as a president to go into the document center to verify your documents, you are only required to carry 5 people. When you go to the main nomination hall, they'll only allow you to have 20 supporters or party officials. Only 20. Ichilema is very clever. He was coming with millions. He wants just a few. Accreditation. So they've set 17th May Sunday for accreditation. Then there are those that have not filed so far. You are a presidential candidate, or maybe you filed, for example, let us assume Dr. Sebastian Copeland and my brother Munjele Leko, I'm just picking your name. He has an issue with people's party, his party, and he didn't file because, you know, there is that issue. Does he go as an independent? It looks like there is still room for you to file. And this is what it says. So for non-scheduled presidential aspirants, let me just see if I can read it. While the commission has drawn up nomination timetable, the nomination desk remains open to any other presidential candidates who do not appear on the timetable, this timetable that is coming to an end tomorrow. So they said you are still eligible. The commission will receive and process these nominations provided the aspirants meet every statutory requirement outlined in the official ECZ nomination checklist. Again, we have problems with that checklist because most of the issues are not even constitutional. Then number 5, they've said then you should take your supporters now to the showgrounds. This is for people that have not part of this list that has just occurred, or for one reason or another, you did not succeed or you want to change or whatever you are doing. There is this opportunity where now the presidential candidate who failed to complete the supporters pre-processing exercise in the province can still take their supporters to Lusaka showgrounds. Number 2, candidates who intend to process and verify their mandatory 1,000 provincial supporters physically during the active nomination week. So you could have filed in and they are saying you didn't meet the 1,000. You still can go for verification and fill in the gap. Then methods of payment of nomination fees, of course, direct cash and cash deposits. Okay, so I think that is fresh guidelines that has come from ECZ, and it's talking about accreditation. There's another one, a longer one, which is regarding monitors and observers that will speak to it far later. Let's see what other matter I've left out before I let you phone and participate in this discussion. Let me look at the issues that are listed that we should discuss. Of course, I've introduced a new one, the issue of the cabinet, that this is a most forgettable cabinet. You can't even remember who they are. Most of them, you remember them for their scandals, you know, where people were killing themselves because of the minister. Others will remember them for corruption, the 61 containers. We are remembering some of the ministers by their scandals, not by their work, not by their delivery. And like I said many times, they were saved by President Hakainde himself, who stepped in and took over their portfolio, whether it was energy during the energy crisis, whether it was selling of the mines, whether it was the agriculture issues. Okay, so I've dealt with the issue of the late president, Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu. The matter is coming up on the 27th. Cabinet has been dissolved. I've just described what it is, and Parliament has, even the Parliament one. Again, I think this was the worst Parliament. I don't know what your views are, but this was the worst Parliament. First, they had the Speaker, Nelly Mutu, who's again the worst Speaker. If you look at the list of speakers we've ever had, Nelly Mutu ranks amongst the worst speakers we have ever had. And let me just read you the list of speakers that Zambia has ever had, and you can look back. And some wrote books, you know, very wonderful books. So the first speaker who brought us into independence was Thomas Williams. From 1956 to 1964, he served as Speaker of the Northern Rhodesia Legislative Council. Then we had the first Zambian speaker, Wesley Nyirenda, 1964 to 1969. He was Zambia's indigenous first speaker. Remember, our parliament opened in 1924. Then there was Dr. Robinson Nabuliato, who came back twice. He first served for over 11 years, for 21 years, between 1969 and 1998. That's 20, yeah, that's, from 1969 to 1988, over 21 years, Dr. Robinson Nabuliato. Then came Fwanyanga Mulikita, 1988 to 1991. This is a speaker who faced criticism. If you look at the 1991 parliament, all of a sudden MPs rebelled and began to demand multi-party democracy. These MPs were UNIP MPs. And do you remember some of those MPs that advocated for multi-party restoration in the 1998-1991 parliament? They clearly stood against the hegemony of UNIP. Dr. Robinson Nabuliato came back. Dr. Chiluba loved him. He said he was one of the best speakers the country had, and he was a disciplinarian, not authoritarian, but disciplinarian. And Chiluba brought him back, and he served for another 8 years, from 1991 to 1998. Came Emmanuel Mwamba, who was an MP, and then transitioned under Rupia Banda as a speaker. Then came Dr. Patrick Matibini, who served for 10 years, from 2011 to 2021. Then we have the worst speaker ever, Nelly Wutete Kashumba Muti, 2021 to 2026. Why do I say that she's the worst? Because she may even be arrested one day. How do you pass an illegal constitutional bill? Does she understand what a constitution is? She does, because she's a very senior lawyer. So to pass an illegal process, illegal law, amending the Republican Constitution, I don't know what offense anyone can do other than such an act that Nelly Wutete Kashumba Muti did. She will be prosecuted because she has just caused untold destabilization of both the constitutional and judicial stability by passing an illegal law in Bill 7, which has now become law. It has expanded Parliament to 281 seats. It has done all sorts of things because she chose to ignore what the courts and the process decided. People may not even remember that the master puppeteer was President Hakainde Hichilema. They will remember Nelly Wutete Kashumba Muti. The lines are open. Let us hear your voice. This is your program. We are discussing opposition unity. Like I said, we had Brian Mundubile of Tonse Alliance coming together with PF Pamoza Alliance, Makebi Zulu, and they've formed Tonse Pamoze. But your core has been, what about Honorable Harry Kalaba and his Orange Alliance? What about Honorable Fred Membe with his People's Pact? Is it possible? And most of you, after yesterday's program, you kept on calling me privately. Come, Landen now, Kambani now, Mumba Kamba now. Nalanda kone chinyanja, I should speak to these leaders to come together. It's not that easy. I can see I already have a first caller. Atuwa bangirire, ewa